So again, my name is Shelby Phillips. My pronouns are she, her, from Valor US, and I am your host and MC for today. I'd like to thank you all for joining us on today's session. We are all part of the solution, partnering with sectors, systems, and institutions to create equitable, safe, and respectful environments. So without further ado, I would like to give the floor to our presenters for today, Yolanda Edrington from Reliance, and also Sandra Henriquez from Reliance.
Hello, everyone.
Go ahead, Yolanda.
Just wanted to say hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. As Shelby said, I'm Yolanda Edrington, she, her pronouns. I am the managing director at Reliance.
And good morning, everyone. I'm Sandra Henriquez, and I am one of the founding and managing partners of Reliance, and some of the other leadership that's not with us or presenting with us today in terms of some of the other two managing partners are Karen Baker and Monica Johnson Hostler. So we have a great team at Reliance, and we're excited to share with you our work, what we're doing, and hopefully interest you more and engage you in being a part of the solution. We would love it if to get started, you would just write in the chat who you are, whether you're with a nonprofit organization and what that organization is, or if you're with a business or corporate, some kind of another business. We would love to know just who's with us today. So that would be great. Thank you so much. And so,
yeah, and also this is going to be an interactive workshop. We're going to do a lot of talking, getting to know each other and getting to know what steps you're in need of. That's what's really important to put in if you're from a corporate organization or nonprofit. We want to make sure that we're giving you information that you can take away with you in your field.
great. So welcome again to We Are All Part of the Solution, partnering with sectors, systems, and institutions to create equitable, safe, and respectful environments. And so I want to talk to you a little bit about Reliance. And Reliance is a national partnership dedicated to ending sexual violence in one generation. And we began our work together as national leaders in 2015. And Reliance came together and is comprised of leaders from the sexual assault movement who identified gaps in the work to end sexual violence. We have over 300 years of cumulative experience, and Reliance was formed not to duplicate the work of the field, but instead to fill some of the gaps that exist in terms of areas that were not being addressed or met. And Reliance partners with a wide range of organizations to improve their cultures and create environments which are free from sexual harassment, misconduct, and abuse. And everyday Reliance helps leaders establish safe workplaces and strong communities by advancing research, influencing policy, and supporting innovative programs. Reliance is based in Washington, D.C., and combines decades of experiences and resources from 3 leading national sexual violence prevention organizations into a single unified force. So I just want to talk to you a little bit about what our goal is at Reliance. You know, I mentioned that we kind of add up all of the years of experience that we have and are bringing together to Reliance. And one of the things that we're really proud of is that we have always been and continue to be rooted in the experiences of survivors. We believe in the power of people to create change. And this is what provides us a perspective and with a sense of collective responsibility. You heard over the last couple of days, I think we talk about, you know, the importance of collective responsibility. And so that's something that we apply also to our work at Reliance. And so this inspires us, the fact that we believe in respect, in collective responsibility, that inspires us to seek partnerships with industries and corporations that have the ability and that have the scale and influence to drive change nationally and globally. So we don't believe that we alone as a field can solve this issue and end the whole spectrum of inappropriate and sexually abusive behaviors. We know that we need to be a part of and partner with others that do that. And we, this is one of the strategies that we use, which is we want to partner with change influencers, people who have the ability to create the kind of change in their own respective worlds, sectors, industries, whatever that may be, that we may not have the ability to do, because this is part of how we live into this idea that we are all part of a solution. So our approach really comes from years of working at the intersections of sexual violence prevention and racial and social justice issues. So we know that in order to end sexually inappropriate behaviors in any kind of environment, work environment, etc., that we have to take a holistic approach to that work as well. In other words, we can't just be there to end sexual violence, but we have to look at the other kinds of power inequities and imbalances, et cetera, that allow for abuse. So at Reliance, we see the problem as being related to disparities of power that are embedded in culture, in systems and institutions, and that we believe that these disparities then create environments where people are devalued, that thereby increasing the risk of sexual violence and harmful, and that these risks of sexual violence are harmful both to individuals and to the institution itself. So I want to take a minute and talk a little bit about some of the principles that guide us in going about solving the problem. So one of the things that's very important to us is that we believe in being bold. And we believe, what that means to us is that we believe in being forward thinking. We want to be unburdened by assumptions of the past. That means that we don't want to think, well, this happened with this particular company, so that's the way that they are, or they're entrenched in their ways. We believe in change and that people can and do change. And so we don't want to burden ourselves or any relationship that we may enter into with any partner by assumptions of the past. So that's one of the things. And then we also do our best to operate with integrity. So what that means to us is that we hold the highest standard of professionalism, and trust and honesty are really important to us and to those relationships that we look to enter into. That means that we have to come at things from an objective place and really try to be trustworthy and honest. Obviously we're diplomatic, but we want to be honest about what we see, what we think, what our experience has been, and what some of the dangers are that some companies or businesses may face. We also believe in equity. So our work always includes promoting the just treatment of people. Again, as we've been talking about at this conference, we do not believe that we can end sexual violence without looking at the issue of equity, part of the theme of the conference, advancing equity, ending sexual violence. Well, that applies also to our work with other sectors, with other industries, right? That we still look to promoting the just treatment of people, and we will highlight that and lift that up as often as we can and wherever we can. We also believe, again, as I mentioned earlier, in collective responsibility. So we don't believe that anything in sexual violence prevention is the exclusive right of any one group of people. Again, just the work of the field. I say that because I know that as the issue of sexual violence gets more visibility over the years, sometimes people in the field, in our own field, have had some feelings about, like, who are these folks and why do they think they're qualified to do this work? Um, and so we, instead of taking that position, I mean, we believe that it's great that we need as many people as possible to be in the space doing that work. And our goal is to partner with them and bring our expertise to help solve the issue or problem that they may have. Again, we believe that we're all part of the solution and that everyone has a role to play. And then one of the things that we have at Reliance is a value of reliance. So not to be confused with our name, but we have a value of reliance, which means we are proud of our background and all of our work, that all of our work is informed by being rooted in the experiences of survivors. So I think one of the things that makes us unique in this space, because we certainly are not the only ones operating this space, is that Reliance is rooted in the experiences of survivors. The 300 plus years that we have in working on behalf of survivors in terms of ensuring good prevention strategies, good treatment, etc. That makes us uniquely qualified to understand and to be able to help inform the work that many of our partners will be doing and are doing. And that leads me to say that we really do believe in the power of people to create change. We think that we believe that a lot of folks really do have good intentions and want to create change, but they need some support in doing so. So I want to talk a little bit about what we see as a solution, or the solution that we want to do. And that is by doing this work and partnering with other sectors, Reliance is really setting out to create a world where systems, institutions, and environments empower people to reach their full potential. So if we could look at, go back and look at what did Reliance accomplish, 20 years from now, if we could go back and look at that, that's one of the things that we want to look back and say is that we've been able to impact and influence different systems, institutions, and environments in order to help them empower the people that are connected to them, that work with and for them, to reach their full potential. And so we would see that as a big success. So I want to take a minute to talk about what are some of the strategies that we use. How do we go about creating these changes in the world? First of all, we think it's important, and we build relationships across sectors, different sectors, industries, and systems. As many as we can. Not yet, Shelby. I'm sorry. I'm still on the earlier slide. Yeah, just right there. So we build different across different sectors, industries, and systems. I'm sorry. I got a little distracted. Shelby, before you go to the next slide, give me a second, because I think something's out of order there. And I apologize, since I sent those to you after. We also realize that success requires perseverance. So we know that we have to really put a lot of work in, as do the folks that are affected, that are experiencing whatever they may be at their organization or company. So with that, we believe that nothing is impossible. And we have to believe that doing this work. We have to believe that sexual violence can be prevented. We have to believe that we can create different kinds of work environments and spaces. And so for us, we believe, and we want to stand by that we need to persevere, support people in doing so, and that we can, that nothing is impossible. We also embrace creativity and innovative solutions that are people-centered. So because centering people and their experiences is so important to us, we want to work with whatever clients, companies, businesses that we have in really coming up with people-centered solutions in order to create really great, trusting, and healthy environments. And then I think finally, it's very important to us to disrupt oppressive behaviors and challenge inequitable practices. So we don't come in with a hammer or anything like that, but we do highlight or address when we see something with the companies and businesses that we're working with, about behaviors that may be oppressive, and we want to bring that to light because for us, again, the issues are connected. So what are some of the services that Reliance offers? So I'll talk to you a little bit about some of the services that we offer. We offer safety system solutions. So what that means is that we've translated the knowledge that we've gained from years of experience working in the field with survivors, and communicating about our issues and creating prevention safety solutions that work across different institutions, sectors, and industries. So we've just taken all of our years of experience, the work that we've been doing, and adapted it and translated to work within different sectors by learning more and understanding more about their cultures and what they do. So, and this can include things like helping the corporate sector to navigate how to handle the issues of sexual harassment and assault so they can improve and hopefully transform their work cultures. We also offer tools and support. So one of the most well-known tools that we offer is known as the Sexual Misconduct and Violence Taxonomy. That taxonomy is a classification system which allows users to consistently categorize and classify different types of sexually inappropriate workplace behaviors. It's an open source document, which means that it's available free of charge for any company to use. We developed the tool in partnership with Uber, who largely funded its development. Because it's open source, we don't generally know who's using it. We sometimes learn who's using it when corporations and businesses reach out to us for support with its use or validation of its use. That means ensuring that it's consistent with the way it was intended to be used and the way that the categories were developed and established. What we have learned from those who use it and are reaching out to us is that they feel that it takes the guesswork out of measuring the prevalence of sexual misconduct. It allows them to consistently gather data about the extent of the problem within the company in order to make decisions that are informed. Reliance then works collaboratively with companies to effectively use the taxonomy to evaluate their current system or validate their implementation process. What else does Reliance do? What other services do we offer? We also offer policy and systems evaluation. So that means that we support businesses in measuring the impact of their internal sexual assault policies and systems. By doing this, we are also helping them to look at their organizational initiatives from a fresh perspective, which hopefully is going to lead to an opportunity for us to work with them to create a safe workplace culture and a good, positive customer experience. Reliance also offers talent development and training. So part of looking at organizational culture includes working with company personnel at all levels. There is no reason for people to stop inappropriate behaviors if they feel that there are not going to be any consequences. So our team works with businesses to shift mindsets and transform behaviors through training and talent development. And one of the other services is crisis communication training and support. So, to be honest, sometimes companies reach out to us because they are in trouble, right? Because they're in the media. And, that's one of the reasons that companies may initially reach out to us. it doesn't really matter why they reached out to us. We're happy that they did so. And so we will help them in identifying ways to sensitively and responsibly communicate about the sexual misconduct. And our communication team brings a victim-centered approach that helps to navigate complex terminology and convey information persuasively. One of our goals here is to build trust with our client. Not only are we experts in the information, but also experts in communicating about the issue without minimizing or victim blaming. Again, something that we've translated and brought forth from our many, many years of working with survivors, and because we come from a survivor-centered place. So this process allows us to support companies by relieving the stress of feeling alone when interacting with internal and external constituents, with the media on issues which they are not intimately familiar with or don't have to face on a day-to-day basis. So Reliance provides organizations with training, tools, guidance, and support that they need to meet their branding and corporate responsibility goals. So you may be wondering, who do we work with? Well, we work with a number of clients, most of whom we are unable to share. So one of the things you'll find in working with different sectors or industries is that it's a routine part of business to enter into confidentiality and non-disclosure agreements. And those generally get entered into prior to engaging in any conversations about the specific problem that they are facing or reaching out to you about. So we may be able to talk in big strokes in a general way. As I mentioned, sometimes they're reaching out to us because they've been in the news and the media. So we may know something, and generally, if we get a call from somebody, then we will do our research before we get on the call with them, just to kind of get a sense of what may be in the media. That's not always the case, but sometimes that is. And so while I can't share with you who our specific clients are for the most part, our relationship with Uber is well known, since we worked with them on the development of the sexual misconduct and violence taxonomy. So that's known, that's public, etc. So I can obviously disclose that we have a relationship with Uber. But I can also tell you that our clients include companies working in transportation, technology, the restaurant and hospitality industries. We've also worked extensively with sport, helping to flip the message from the public seeing them as a part of the problem, to helping sport themselves embrace and see themselves as having an opportunity to be a part of the solution. And Shelby, that's where I think I may have, the slide I want is of the Reliance website. So I don't know if you can get that one, but you can learn more about Reliance by, and I think this is where I was just going to share our slide about Reliance by going to our website. So there's one in there, Shelby, that has 2 Reliance images. Just if you can go through it quickly and get to them, because we're not at the learning objectives yet. Yeah, that's it. I'm sorry. Yeah. So that's just a screenshot of our website. And one of the things I wanted to mention to you about is that you can go there, and I draw your attention. That's why I took a screenshot of the Sport and Prevention Center. It's just, you just click at the top there, you'll see a tab that says sport. And at the Sport and Prevention Center, we offer resources, research, and a roadmap for sport to be a part of the solution. We're particularly proud of our prevention database, which allows users to explore sexual and domestic violence prevention strategies for sport. So as you can see, Reliance welcomes the opportunity to work with corporations and businesses in order to help them navigate and improve their work environments. We believe it's a partnership They are experts in their workplace culture, and we are experts in addressing and preventing sexual violence. We enter into every relationship with the goal of not being only a resource, but with the goal of entering into a long-term and meaningful partnership. So I've spoken a lot, and I'm not sure, Shelby or Yolanda, if there are questions in the chat just
Sure.
about what I covered.
So I'll go ahead and jump right in. Thank you, Sandra, for giving a great overview of Reliance and all of the services. I do want to take a pause here and offer up a space. People, please feel free to unmute yourselves and pop right in and ask questions, or even make statements or comments over the information that you've learned, or even right here in the comment section if you prefer to write it. We are monitoring the comment section also.
It looks like Sandra may be frozen. Or is it my Wi-Fi?
No, I think Sandra is frozen, but I will keep going.
Okay.
I just wanted to give a moment for attendees to be able to touch base, and if there was anything that folks wanted to mention.
Okay.
And I'm going to take the silence as an okay to move on. If we can go to the next slide. All right. So as Sandra described, Reliance Business, we work with many different organizations and institutes to help respond and to prevent sexual misconduct in the workplace. And that's across all business operations. And though we are, just like many people that work for corporations, signed NDAs and aren't able to list all of our clients, I did want to say, so, if people are reaching out to you or organizations are reaching out to you, they do talk to each other. So we may not be able to mention all of the names, but the good thing is that they're just like us in nonprofit field and work through sexual violence. We're also a tightly knit field, and so are they. So when there's technology summits and things like that, just like we sit at the table and talk about all the interesting things that we have learned and make these connections together, the same thing happens in those industries too. So they're sharing their experiences in the lessons that they have learned from partnering with nonprofits or other organizations to help guide them along the process. So in this session, we'll explore how to create cultures that improve the safety of employees, customers, and organizations. So there's 3 learning objectives that we're going to talk about today. The first one is describe. We want to describe the impact of harassment and misconduct on employees, customers, and organizations. Our second learning objective is to identify strategies for workplaces to improve the safety of employees, customers, and organizations. And then the third one is to describe how to connect with organizations and institutions interested in building a healthier workplace culture. All right, and has Sandra logged back in?
Not yet. Sandra's having some technical issues and is trying to get back on Zoom.
Just one moment, please. Sandra jump in once she gets in, we'll keep it moving.
Okay.
So after reviewing the objective, do we have any questions or concerns that have popped up, or things that you thought we were going to cover, but you don't see it covered in the learning objectives?
So there's one comment in the chat. I'll do my best to read you the question. So thank you for the presentation. One of the challenges that I've been grappling with is trying to form and sustain relationships with community partners and businesses / corporations on the subject of preventing sexual violence. Another challenge is this need to step away from criminal legal procedures in a workplace environment that usually normally turns to systems instead of community-based support. Could you please provide some strategies or techniques to how we can implement restorative justice practices or strategies in hand with partners while also maintaining positive rapport, specifically on their direct engagement level?
Absolutely. And that is actually part of the presentation, but thank you so much for bringing this up, because I want to make sure that what we go over is really specific to the needs of the audience. So please continue to drop in questions and to make sure that we're covering these things too. Thank you again, Melinda. So, and this really starts the conversation when we talk about change. You know, at one time, and even in some spaces where we always talk about, you know, starting from the top, and that's where a lot of our efforts are from the top down. Employees are becoming more political and saying to their employer, we want change. We want you to do something. These are the things that we want. And so with the landscape changing, and particularly over this last 18 months, we wanted to take a moment here and just and call out the change that we do see, and this is a good thing. I'm sorry, I'm reading and talking at the same time. So Sarah put in here, do you also promote policies that address specific risk factors for sexual violence? For example, the risk factor of economic instability can be addressed by promoting livable wages. Is this something Reliance does as well? Yes. So when we work with organizations, we do an assessment, and this isn't off topic. Please throw your questions in on whether we're on this subject or not. We do provide an assessment of the organization where we review pay, we review policy and procedures, and then also provide feedback on what we believe they need to do to change. Was that helpful, Sarah? So we will talk about, Sarah has a question on her. Yes, how do you explain the connection between livable wage and prevention? So we're gonna just put that on the holding board because that is particularly covered in our presentation. You're welcome. And we can go ahead to the next slide. All right, so we're going to take a poll. On a scale from 1 to 5, how important do you think sexual violence is to business leaders? 1 being of low importance and 5 being a pressing priority. Okay, I see from the comment that a few, the poll disappeared for a few people.
Yolanda, it may have like hidden behind windows. We did relaunch it like a few minutes ago.
Okay.
So people are voting.
Great.
70% of voted yes.
Oh, thank you.
And I believe we ended the poll. Are you able to see the results, Yolanda?
Yes. So we have, okay, pretty good numbers here. 41 people went with 2 as important. All right, so we'll start from the top. Least important was 29. 41 people went with important, very important 22, pressing priority 19. So does anyone want to share on why, since 2 is the majority number, on why you chose 2?
And can people unmute themselves, Yolanda, if they want to, or do
Yes,
they
they
have to do it in
can
the
just pop right in and start to talk.
Anyone? I'm really interested in the folks who have selected 1, least important, if anybody would be willing to share. Why you think it's not important to the business leaders. Sexual violence is not important. Anybody? Okay, I know Yolanda said it was going to be interactive.
There's a Sandra, there's a few people making multiple comments in the comment section, and then there's some difficulty with unmuting.
It's working
Okay.
now.
Good.
Yeah,
I
we
think
just
I'm
got the
unmuted.
announcement.
I'm sorry, I think I'm unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So my name is Allison Latham Jones. I live in Tucson, Arizona. I work at the University of Arizona, and I previously worked at a Fortune 500 where I experienced just like a great deal of pretty severe sexual harassment. And when I went to report it, I received pushback from my boss, who was a woman, who said that it would like hurt our relationships. And it was a military industrial complex related Fortune 500. And so it was like part of the culture, but it was a really like pretty damaging experience. And I ultimately left the company, and I saw that I felt like I saw leaders who didn't really care about anything unless you could specifically say why it impacted the return on investment, or why it was a strategic business decision, or why it was like specific to their money. I didn't see buy-in, and I also saw a lot of senior female leaders like in my work after leaving. I had women from that company on one of my like women in STEM panels from a organization I previously worked at. And these senior leaders, women at the company, were like, it doesn't happen at this company. Like, we don't have that problem here. We have thorough training. No one does it. Like, it's a great company to work for. And so there were senior female leaders that were completely blind to what was happening to like so many women who worked at their workplace. And I'm specifically choosing not to name the organization at this time, but I thought, unless you can say why it impacts the ROI or why this impacts your bottom line or why you should care in a really concrete financial way, like someone's going to sue you. I just didn't see anybody thinking it was a priority.
Thank you, Allison. Anyone else?
Sarah Bear is going to be talking now.
Thank you. This is Sarah Bear. I actually just wanted to echo what someone said in the chat. I'm trying to find it. Harpreet said that they're more concerned about their bottom line and reputation, and I feel like that's pretty spot on with how I've seen things play out within businesses. I mean, if we look at just the way the Olympics is handling a current like sexual assault allegation, and how they are allowing someone to compete in the Olympics, but they are not allowing a Black woman who is amazing to compete because she had weed in her system. And so I think that is really indicative of what our society values, and that they are more concerned with their appearance and I mean, their bottom line, if they're making money, if they are what their reputation is. And I would like to hope that that will change at some point. And it sounds like there are some organizations and companies that are changing, but I think there still needs to be a huge cultural shift before this really becomes a top priority.
Great, thank you. And if there's anyone else?
Yes, and Sandra, before you jump in, so reading through many of the statements in the comment section, and also thank you both for sharing, it takes us right back to change. So I want to take a step back, and now that Sandra's back on, and talk about the change. And so in some spaces, there are organizations we can see that are taking sexual violence as a priority, or at least make it, and it's important to them. So thinking about change, what kind of needs to happen in some of these organizations, especially I read up in here about the nightlife and prevention, for it to go from not being least important to now making it a pressing priority. So I'll stop there and hand off to Sandra. And again, please feel free to raise your hand so that we can put you back in and that you can communicate with us, or even put your comment in the chat section.
Yeah, Yolanda, I see Harpreet. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that correctly. Harpreet has their hand up.
Yeah, hi Sandra, you are. Thank you for checking in on about that. I don't have an answer to your question, Yolanda, but I think somebody mentioned that there needs to be a cultural shift, and I agree. I think that a big issue is that when things like this happen, I mean, in my own experience, it's really hard to know who you can trust. Like, it's really hard to go to HR because you know that HR will tell you what you need to hear, what they want to tell you, but at the end of the day, they're going to look out for the company. They're going to look out for those who employed them. And I feel like just in general, even there's such a lack of transparency. You know, they'll tell the employee one thing to make sure that they don't, you know, pursue any legal kind of action. But also they're always, it's hard to trust. It's hard to trust. And I think the culture shift needs to happen. But I think that there's so much that needs to be broken down, you know. So a lot of HR's policies are very white centered, are very westernized, and I think, you know, to really tackle sexual violence, it's almost like you have to break all of these different things down to be able to build them back up. Thank you.
Thank you. So thank you for sharing. And, you know, one of the things that we see and just in doing this work is that it really is kind of mirrors a lot of what we've seen just throughout the years that we've worked in sexual violence prevention, right, is that, you know, I mean, we used to see it back in the day with, you know, the criminal legal system, is that, you know, there were people that it was an issue that was hard for them to deal with or address. And so there was a lot of work to do, and there continues to be a lot of work to do. And I think that when we're working with the corporate and business sectors, it's the same, right? And it's like, just, I think a lot of, anywhere we go, there can be a lot of denial about it and minimizing of it, right? That, and sometimes we as individuals do it. And I believe that that happens sometimes as a self-protection. Like if I can figure out why that happened to this person, then I can do something different. It won't happen to me, right? And I think that doesn't only happen at the individual level, but it also can happen in organizations and different types of businesses. And so I think, you know, like I saw Yolanda put in the chat, we have a lot of work to do, and that's true. And because we are relatively new to having an audience, I think because the corporate and business sector is more recently, in recent years, demonstrating more interest in reaching out and creating partnerships and learning about these issues. That means that, you know, we have a lot of work that does have to be done, and kind of a lot of catching up to do, because we, you know, since we operate in the space on a day-to-day basis, then we see these things from our own experience and lens, and I think how far we've come as a movement. And one of the things I like to think about is that I believe that we've been successful by elevating the issue, right? And then, of course, there are all the things that have happened over the years with sexual violence. It's different than domestic violence in that domestic violence really came to public awareness behind the Nicole Brown Simpson murder and that trial of the century, right? At that time, things changed and everybody began to pay attention to domestic violence, and funders started to dedicate resources to it. And all of a sudden it was just a part of the public awareness. And sexual violence, we never had that one moment, right? There have been many, many moments over the years. We had, you know, the Catholic Church scandal, campus sexual assault, military sexual assault, Penn State, you know, Harvey Weinstein, you know, all of these different things over the years. And it's still the issue that is hard to talk about, that people don't want to look at and sometimes feel that they're immune to it. So I think that's just something, a reality that we are up against, and we may be up against for a very long time. However, the fact that it is being talked about now and that there is some pressure, I think is a testimony to the success of our movement, right? To the success that we have wanted to elevate the conversation about a topic that's hard for people, and that's happening. And so I think part of this workshop today is about how do we then, you know, how do those of you in many states working in the field, or if there are folks on the call that are from, that are not from within the field, that are from the corporate or business sectors, how do we then come together to create partnerships, to understand one another, right? Because in the field, we have a culture too. And we're pretty much a system also. And so we are used to ourselves and the way we speak and the way we operate. And so then it requires intentionality about learning a different cultures enough so that we can have meaningful partnerships, so that we, because if we can do that, then we can together influence and create change within these different places, right? So I want to go back for a minute, because you may have noticed that I lost internet. Don't know how that could have happened today, but it did. I'm hoping it won't happen again. But I wanted to go back because I know you all, I had wanted to talk a little bit about the slide that we talked about change. We don't have to go back to the slide because all it said was change. But, and I know that you all shared some of what you're seeing or noticing about change. I think that we're noticing that there are starting to be some significant changes in terms of the issues that companies and businesses will weigh in on or become more involved with. You know, in the past, I think that there definitely was a kind of a belief, and I think it really did happen. It was more than a belief that the decisions about whether to engage in some of these issues around sexual harassment, even around diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? Things like that, largely came from executive leadership. But now we're witnessing a change. And that change is that we're seeing more companies weighing in on social issues, right? They're weighing in on social issues because of the different racial and social justice interests of their employees. So I don't know if you already talked about this, Yolanda, but you know, their employees. And so I had added a couple of slides. Those are the ones that, and I don't know if you shared them. Did you? No? Okay, great. Shelby, yeah, so can we put those slides up? It's weird because I'm only seeing Yolanda and I, but I'm assuming I'll look at my notes. How about that? Okay, so I can't see the slide, Shelby, but close the chat.
Does anyone see my slides?
I can see the
Yes.
interpreter and myself. That's what I can see.
The slide that we're on right now is the first learning objective.
Okay, that's not the slide okay.
And the participants can also see the learning objective.
Describe the impact, that people will be able to describe the impact of harassment and misconduct in employees. I'm looking at my notes because I can't, for some reason, all I can see is myself in the interpreter. Okay. So Yolanda, I mean, what I wanted to jump to was really this, just that we're seeing some of those changes. And can you go, yes, that slide. Thank you, Shelby. So I still can't see it, but I have my notes. So, so you see, these are just some headlines, right? About things that were happening that are in the media. You know, the kinds of ways that companies are beginning to be kind of put on blast about things that are happening there. Can you go to the next slide, Shelby? Yeah, so here we have the one about Starbucks and Black Lives Matter, right? So, and then we have the one about 150 companies. But let me just talk a little bit about Starbucks. So on June 12th of 2020, Starbucks issued a statement. So I think what I was getting to on this with these pictures is that in the past, it used to be, you know, again, the leadership that would say, we're going to weigh in, or we're going to do something, or we're going to take on this issue, where now there seems to be a lot more pressure coming from within the ranks, right? So the employees themselves are saying, we want you to say something. We want our company that we work for to weigh in on this. You know, this is important to us. And so that's a change that we're beginning to see. And I think it's a really welcome change, because it allows us to, it kind of creates an opening, and it allows us to help that company who now has to deal with and address the issues that are coming up from within their ranks, and we can be there and be a resource. And that's one of the things that we're seeing already and has come up for us as Reliance. So, so this particular top one is that Starbucks issued this, issued a statement on June, let me look, I have it right here, June 12th of 2020. And let me just read to you. I don't want to put that all in, but this is just an example. Black Lives Matter, and Starbucks is committed to doing our part in ending systemic racism. It says, as a company, Starbucks leaders continue to listen to partners with employees about how they want to take a stand for justice while proudly wearing the green apron and standing united together. The company continue to work closely with community leaders, civil rights leaders, organizations, and our partners to understand the role that Starbucks can play and to show up in a positive way for our communities. And so, you know, this definitely is as a result, not only of public attention to situations that they mishandled, right, in the way that Starbucks was treating, some Starbucks employees were treating Black people that came into their shop, but this was something that they kind of got caught doing, and they decided, well, we have to do something. But there was also a lot of internal pressure from their employees who said, take a stand. We don't want to work for a company like this, you know? And so there was that kind of pressure. Then there was this next one that's more than 150 companies call on Congress to strengthen Voting Rights Act. So, so Apple, Amazon, Google, Starbucks, and Pepsi are among more than 150 companies that signed on to a letter that was released. This is from the articles Wednesday, calling on Congress to pass legislation that would expand the Voting Rights Act protections for minority voters. Despite decades of progress, impediments to exercising the right to vote persist in many states, especially for communities of color. We need federal protections to safeguard this fundamental right for all Americans, the companies wrote in the letter. The letter calls for Congress to pass legislation that would update the 1965 voting rights in order to address a 2013 Supreme Court ruling that did away with one of its most effective provisions. So we're seeing those kinds of things that are happening, and we are also, I did a little bit of research and looked up something that came out in October of 2020 from the Harvard Business Review. And it's also, it says, so here's what it says: Black Lives Matter, trade policy, immigration. Over the last 4 years, companies have been under pressure from their constituents, employees, customers and investors, very important, and the communities in which they operate to take a public stand on high-profile political and social movements. So it says, according to the research, 54% of employees globally believe that CEOs should speak publicly on controversial political and social issues that they care about. So 54% of employees believe that the CEO should be speaking publicly about the issues that are important to them. And similarly, 53% of consumers agree that every brand has a responsibility to get involved in at least one social issue that does not directly impact its business. Okay, so I want to go back in a minute to something I heard earlier or I saw in the chat about the bottom line, et cetera, or when it's about liability. Here's just some more information from Forbes, also from October of 2020. 68% of Americans want CEOs to take a stand on social issues, the policy finds. 68% of Americans think that CEOs should take a stand on social issues as business leaders increasingly become more vocal amid racial justice protests this year. Okay, let me just see if anything is different about that. Just talks about many major companies releasing statements about Black Lives Matter in the wake of George Floyd's death. Let's see. So I think that's just my point. But the reason I wanted to share that information is because some folks were saying in the chat that they may not get involved if it doesn't impact their bottom line or liability. But we know that it does, right? And I think it's up to us to help. Companies are becoming more keenly aware that these kinds of issues coming up, especially if they are left unaddressed or if they're trying to cover them or not, just not addressing them, that is going to have, it's likely going to hit the media, and that is going to affect investors, stockholders, customers, all of those things, not to mention employee morale, right? Employee morale is bad. So those are all things. Their brand, it affects their brand and it affects their reputation. So those are all things that are really important to them. And so those are the kinds of things that we need to be figuring out. How do we help them to address it? I mean, if we think about it, over the years, people have come to our field or movement for different reasons. You know, just in our work with the clients that we have, you know, Yolanda and I have met some really great people that are in leadership that really want to create a change or transform the organizational culture, right? But it's always a process. It's always they also have to sell it, right? Like anybody else, they want to know, are there guarantees? There are not ever any guarantees, but we have a pretty good sense that if we engage in prevention strategies, that it can help. So I think I'm saying this to just make a point that regardless of why somebody comes to us, I know at Reliance, we want to embrace the fact that they did. We always hope to help them with the culture change piece, but we know that sometimes they are coming to us for a discrete piece. They might be coming to us, you know, to help them with a particular, more narrow piece. And that might not be the extent of what we hope to do, but we're okay with that being a starting place and a place where we can begin to build a relationship, build trust and respect for each other's work, and then show our value, right? Because we know that we have value. We know that we are different from HR specialists, who are the ones who often contracted to do this work. We're different, right? Because we come from this background, but we also then have to be able to fit in and understand their world. Yolanda?
Yeah, so I think this is a great space to jump in and pull up our first learning objective. Describe the impact of harassment and misconduct on employees, customers, and organizations. And I wanted to take a moment in this space because we are different. All of us are that are on this call. We are coming to working with organizations, corporations outside of our field differently. So in earlier, talking about the bottom line, right? There are ROI to help organizations understand the long-term effect of harassment and misconduct on employees, customers, and the organization. 3 different buckets. And buckets is probably not the best word to use. Because right now, just from feedback, is that we've described the impact that organizations see as a whole on like the bottom line. But the missed part is the part on the employee, on the customer. So we've discussed earlier on the organization, and Sandra has already talked, gave a great overview about the impact on employees and customers and organization, but I want to take a moment to make sure we give space for us to talk about it out loud on what are the impacts that not have we have we personally had, but also seen in our workplace of harassment and misconduct on employees and customers? I believe we've covered organizations, but I want to give a space before we move into identifying strategies, which is where Sandra was going, before we do go there.
I'm sorry, Yolanda, I was looking at the chat. Did you, were you asking me something?
No, I'm giving space for,
Okay, good. Good.
if folks wanted to chime in or talk about their experience, whether that's personal or things that they have witnessed that organizations are really missing. And I can, start us off. Anxiety, depression, reduce of even enjoyment of fulfillment of coming into a place that you might have liked when you first started there. Self-confidence. So I'll read here. Making employees feel undervalued and small. Making employees question whether they want to stay or not. I mean, we are experiencing this personally. I would take the work home with me, not leaving because you don't want to leave others in that situation. Yeah. Lost time from work, fear, illness, mental health impacts, et cetera, et cetera. And I wanted to jump back up, and I believe it's Alexis, where there are people that stay at employment, even though they know they're experiencing the harm continues to come, not only for them personally, but also for their coworkers and the customers, because we don't want to leave a person. We want to, be there for someone. And this is the part that, the internal part that I believe organizations, as we talked earlier, some are missing this part, and that goes into change, the culture change that we talk about. Helping them to recognize these specific things. Trauma reactions and just thinking about going to work. Right, are you one of the, I worked at a place that I really enjoyed the work I did, but I didn't enjoy the culture at the employment. And I would spend maybe 20 minutes in my car afterwards just to decompress and jump from that space to getting into home life. But that's a great example that I remember personally. And I really wish my employer at the time understood the impact, especially when you are a part of the hiring process and you don't want to lead them to deal with these alone, that you want them to know that they are still supported by some of the org and upper management. Exactly. And Claire put, being unable to focus on work because of trauma and working in a toxic environment. Thank you so much for sharing. We're going to now jump into what are some strategies. And before we jump into the strategies, we're going to do another poll. And I just want to ask, does your organization have a safer work environment plan? And taking all these things into consideration on that, what we're talking about right now, if you went to, take me, if I go to my employer and say, this is what I'm experiencing, they may not recognize how it attaches to their ROI. Are you working with or for an employer that understands that it's more than just the ROI? And if they do, have they come together and develop a plan, and most likely, hopefully anyways, it's a living, breathing plan as we learn more. Oh, it's great to see. Oh, we're more than half with yes. That's great. And I'd like to ask this question before we move into strategy and to identifying strategies, which is our learning objective number 2. It's great to see organizations that have already started the plan on creating safer workspaces or creating safety, improved safety for employees, customers, and organization as a whole. So thank you so much for taking the poll. This is helpful for us as it guides our conversation.
Would you like me to end the poll, Yolanda, or wait for a couple of
Oh,
minutes?
yes. Sorry
Okay.
about that.
No, it's okay.
Thank you.
I'll share the results. You can see the results now.
So we have 61% saying yes, and 39% saying no, which was 27 people. So our goal is, as we move along and start talking about strategies, as Sandra will soon be chiming in, is that some of these strategies can go back with you and hopefully be able to discuss internally on, for people that are saying no, on some next steps for the organization.
Great, thank you. Thanks, Yolanda. So can we go to the next slide entitled Identify? Well, it starts with the word identify. I'm assuming that's it, but because I can't see. Oh, there we go. I could see it now. Okay, perfect. So just in terms of identifying, I'm just aware that we only have about 10 minutes. I'm so sorry. But just in terms of identifying strategies, some of the things that we have found that are really important is to know the facts and statistics. So when you're either someone reaches out to you or you're going to reach out to someone, make sure that you do your research and know, like, what is some of what's going on there? Is there anything that's public? Is there anything that you can learn by just going to the company's website that's going to help you to understand some of what they may be dealing with, whether it's something that's in the news or just knowing the size of the business, what types of employees they have, that kind of thing. Just know the facts, know the statistics, know what you need to know. The other thing that's really important is to be able to look at and translate some of the trainings that you use, maybe in community and doing community work, but to be able to offer training and education that's more tailored to the business sector. And again, some of the ways that you figure out how to do that is by asking questions and learning what are their needs and what's going to help them to, what is it they're looking to achieve and how can you help meet that? We have a lot of experience doing that with lots of different types of audiences. So this is just a different audience. The other thing is it's important in any kind of a strategy that you're identifying is that you engage all levels of personnel. So not just the executive leadership, but also management and frontline workers, just so that you could learn a little bit more about their experiences and their perceptions about what how well the business is doing, areas that they may be needing to. So it's like you're doing your research to learn what do they need. And then I think the last thing I wanted to talk about here is really around evaluating. So you want to be able to show that you're helping them to make a difference, and evaluation and showing impact is really important to any company and business that you're working with. So you always want to make sure that not only have resources available that are adapted and appropriate, but that you also from the onset that you have some type of a process in which to evaluate the impact of what you're doing. And then let's just go to if we can just go to the last slide, which says describe also. Just let me know when you're there because I can't see it. Not that one, the one before. Yeah, there, thank you. So this is just about connecting. The word that should have been in orange was really the word connect. Describe how to connect with organizations and institutions interested in building healthier workplace cultures. So I think I kind of crossed over, but learn about their culture. So not just information about how they're made up, but also about what their culture is. You know, you learn a lot by learning what people's cultures are, and it helps you to be able to relate to them. So, you know, just be prepared to ask some questions about that'll help you get at that question about culture. Also, be prepared to help rather than judge. I think it's super easy to get into this place of judgment, especially when people are in the media and we're like, oh, they're coming to us because of this reason. You know, they're coming to us because they need help. And one of the things that I like to think about is none of our businesses, none of our lives are immune to sexual assault, sexual violence, sexual harassment, right? It doesn't matter that we dedicate our lives and we do this work every day. We can all be touched by it also and experience it. And it can happen anywhere, right? Even if we have policies and practices in place, what we do is lessen the likelihood and create environments where you know, sexually inappropriate behaviors, people, you know, will not engage in them, or that we lessen the likelihood of that, but nobody is immune. And so that's something to just be aware of. And then also recognize that they may have a different perspective than ours, right? So they may be coming at it for a different reason. And it's just important that we not get into a place of judgment about that, because that, first of all, it comes across, but second of all, nobody wants to work with anybody that's critical and judgmental. They want to work with somebody that's there to help them with the situation that they're in. You know, one reason, one approach isn't right and the other one isn't wrong. They're just different. And just like we've been talking about the last couple of days, just about embracing difference, and that we sometimes are intolerant or think that we have a way, and we do that a lot in the field. In the movement is like, we think we know the right way. And, you know, we have a lot of experience and we've been doing this and dedicating our lives to this on a day-to-day basis. Other folks have not. So it's important to just accept that things are different and to do our best to try and put ourselves in their position and look through their lens. So, and, you know, again, just the best way to gain insight is by asking questions. So with that, I think we're at the last slide, and I know we only have a few minutes, 5 minutes, but I'd love to try and take your questions in the last 5 minutes. So I'm seeing a question in the chat about, and I'll have to scroll up to see if I missed anything. I'm seeing a question in the chat about, what do you think about conducting anonymous surveys of employees to get information from those who are afraid to speak up? Well, I think that so one of the things that you want to do is talk to whoever your potential client is and say, you know, it's important to survey across all levels, and those kinds of surveys should be anonymous, right? So you would be surveying at every level on an anonymous basis. And that's because just what you said is that sometimes people, you know, they may be afraid, or they just may feel uncomfortable for whatever reason to speak up and share. So this allows you to get a sense of what people's perceptions and experiences are at various levels. Does Reliance provide TA to sexual violence organizations trying to work with their employers? So we're happy to try and answer whatever questions we have. We do have, we do have a kind of pretty full plate in terms of like trying to address the needs of our clients. But one of the things that we not only are we really proud of being a part of a network of sexual violence providers around the nation, but often people are looking for, some of our clients want to engage with and connect with people in their local communities. So wherever they may have an outlet, right? And so for us, it's really important. It's been really important to like help bring our field and movement along in feeling like we want to do this, right? That this is also a part of our work. It's just a different audience, but it's also a part of our work. Just like we worked for years to influence what, the criminal legal system, we did that, right? And we did, we were, helped things to change. Sometimes we created way too many laws and crimes than we needed to, but we did that as well, right? We were able to affect policies. And so we can do the same. We can do the same with different sectors. And so we want to encourage you all. And, we're happy if you reach out to us to do whatever we can to support and help you. We offer this workshop because we want to just give you an intro into how to do that. I hope that answered your question. Were there other questions that I'm not seeing in the chat? Yolanda, do you see anything that I haven't seen in the chat?
Yes, there was a question earlier, Sandra, and I was hoping that you could talk more about it, about how do you explain the connection between livable wage and prevention, and how are we helping organizations see the connection?
Great. Oh, thanks so much. So, Reliance tries to take a kind of a holistic approach, and we're very clear with any of our potential prospective clients about that our goal is always to look at this from an intersectional place and the various issues that impact not only their employees, certainly their employees, but also their consumers and clients. And so that's why we do talk about a lot of issues around diversity, equity, and inclusion, which would also encompass things around living wages. Again, that's always our goal, is we want to sell the whole package. We don't always get to, or it's a process. We've had the experience of saying, this is what we think you need in order to create culture change, and initially just being contracted to do a very, very small piece of that. Is it frustrating? Yeah, but we understand it's a process, right? We can't just expect to get in there and, oh yeah, they're gonna, we have to show our value. We have to show how this is going to help the company and their goals. And then what we've also had the experience of is sometimes those same companies come back to us and say, okay, now we want this other piece, or now we want to do the culture change because now we tried these other things, and that's great. It's a start, but we want to do more. So that's always our goal, but we have to be patient too. So I think we're at time, but feel free. Time flew by. Thank you so much.
Yes, thanks everyone so much for coming in and joining us for this workshop. I put Reliance's website back in because you can link to both Sandra and I on there, and other members of the Reliance team right off of the website. If you had any specific questions that didn't get answered here, please feel free to reach out to us, and we will go ahead and send you those answers directly to you. But thank you again for joining us today.
Let me just answer that one last question that I see came up in the chat, and then we'll just sign off because I know we're over. Could we circle back to the strategies for restorative justice as well? Just quickly, we always try to promote restorative practices just like we would in the, looking at the criminal legal system, we try and promote and say that there are always different things that can do. And we really don't want people modeling off of, very punitive responses, one size fits all. So it depends. But definitely something on our radar. But thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to be with you all. Bye-bye.
Yes.